Hello YouTube and welcome to this custom Crit Ice Nova on a budget guide. First of all, note that this guide has a written version with a lot of info linked to the description. Secondly, I want to point out that the budgets are an indication and are hinged on how successful you are at getting good items at correct prices. Anyhow, let's jump straight into it. This build leverages the brittle mechanic to avoid having to invest heavily into critical strike chance. Because of that, you're going to have an easier time hitting the other necessities in a custom crit build, such as damage, accuracy, and attack speed. We're scaling brittle through some simple cluster jewels, a bench crafts on gear, and a passive tree. The tree naturally paths through enough ailment effect to scale the shock and brittle, crit chance, accuracy, and attack speed, so you need nothing special on your gear. This comes with the downside of having very limited ways to access crit multi, which is why the build opts into a fixed amount of crit multi through Maligaro's gloves. Elementalist on his turn allows you to turn your crit scaling into both damage, survivability through freeze and shock, which are again amplified by effect of non-damaging ailments. Overall, this allows you to build a Cyclone Cast on crit playstyle without needing multiple tens of divines to get your character going. The showcase in the background is a mixture between a 4 to 500 chaos build and a version where I invested maybe 3 to 4 divines into. Obviously, prices are subject to change, but this archetype of Cast on crit will always be cheaper than the widely known versions. Since I want to keep this brief, this is where we're going to move on to gear pieces. First of all, the build is going to run double Cospri's Malice. This is because it's important for me to automate as many things as possible. The Cospris will provide you with double damage because of the interaction between Frostbolt and Ice Nova, as well as automating things such as curses and exposure. This is important as we don't really have options to find these on gear anywhere else. Next up, the build abuses, and yes, I use that term because I think this item is stupid, the Heat Shiver. Because you're reliably chilling and freezing enemies, this helmet provides a 130% more damage multiplier, which is absolutely nuts for a helmet slot. Additionally, it comes with evasion and resistances, which are stats we really like. You don't need an enchanted one. I don't have one for any of the footage in this video anyhow. Another unique item you are going to be using no matter what are the Maligaro's gloves. At the start you don't need a corrupted pair, it isn't until you swap into the replica Dragon Fang you are going to need those. This brings you to the amulet. First and foremost, you're going to use a simple rare neck with some life and anoint being Ash, Frost and Storm, some life and an open suffix so you can craft ailment effect later. Or on the bench, right? This helps you cap your Cyclone's crit chance, however, since Replica Dragonfang allows you to set up your auras in a different way, as I'll mention later, and allows you to have +3 to level of all your Ice Nova gems, it is too good to pass up on. Because you're losing an ailment effect craft and potentially a crit chance suffix on the amulet, Corrupted Maligaros come in again to cap your Cyclone's crit chance. The amulet probably also frees up your attribute requirements as it has the reduced attribute requirement affix. Now for your rare pieces, the boots are your most vital part. This is where you get your source of brittle. Ideally, you look on trade for a pair like mine by finding the ailment effect plus as much resists as you can find and as much life as you can find and crafting on movement speed or movement speed and onslaught yourself. It is absolutely vital that you have 5% cooldown recovery rate and brittle ground on them through Eldritch Implicits. These are obtained by using lesser Eldritch Acres or Embers on them. As for your rings, you're likely on the hunt for necessary resistances, most likely one good accuracy roll depending on your POB, life, and one open prefix to craft channeling skills have -3 to total mana costs, as this makes your Cyclone free and therefore frees up a ton of mana. Next up, because of Cast on Crit's trigger rate, you need a belt with at least 9% crafted cooldown recovery rate on it. This is the suffix, so you'll need to buy one with an open suffix. Lastly, you shouldn't underestimate the power flasks are giving you. You need good flasks, better than the ones I'm showcasing in the guide here, to be honest, so that they're up all the time. This way, you can leverage a reduced mana cost of skills craft and crit chance affixes through both a diamond flask and a critical strike chance during effect suffix to fix up your last necessary crit chance. All of your flasks should have a chance to gain a flask charge when you deal a critical strike prefix and should have evasion, critical strike chance, immunity to bleed, reduced mana cost, and I guess reduced effect of curses suffixes. If you want to, you could run an attack speed suffix or a spell leech suffix as well. If you can, for example, replace the bleed by a corrupting blood jewel, and if you have the attack speed suffix, you can later drop the blood rage. As for the skill gems, moving on, your main 6-link is going to be Cyclone, Cast on Critical Strike Chance, Ice Nova, Inspiration, Added Cold Damage Support, and Hypothermia. Obviously, you can swap to Awakened gems, but if you swap to Awakened Cast on Critical Strike Chance support, you'll need to make a few changes to reap the benefits. First and foremost, you're going to need the +2 levels of critical support gems in the passive tree to bump it up to level 8. If you don't have a level 5 Awakened Cast on Crit, it makes no sense using it or buying it. When you acquire this passive, however, and a level 5 Awakened Cast on Critical Strike gem, combining it with the 5% you already have on the boots, and a new build, now with 16% cooldown recovery rate, this will put you at the next threshold and will almost double your damage. So once you can afford to make these 3 swaps, I recommend doing so. In your first cost breeze, you will be putting greater multiple projectiles linked to Frostbolt and a Frost Bomb to proc Frostbolt and double the costed amount of Ice Novas because you have Frostbolts out. In your second cost breeze, you're automating your Frostbite Curse and socketing another Ice Nova plus Inspiration support to maximize your damage output. For your other sockets, you are going to want to run a Vortex linked to the Bone Chill support and drop this whenever you find a beefy target. You'll also need a Blood Rage, as mentioned before, until you can get a corrupted cost breeze with Frenzy Charge generation and an additional source of attack speed, for example the Flask or on Jewels, to make up for the lost attack speed. And honestly, if you don't want to do this upgrade, you can probably use Blood Rage forever. It's really not annoying on this build. As for auras, at the start you'll be running a Dread Banner, Precision, Herald of Ice combined with a Flesh and Stone. However, when you make the swap to Replica Dragon Fang, you can swap Flesh and Stone for Grace because you get reservation efficiency from the amulet, and Grace is better than Flesh and Stone for consistency and EHP. This leaves you with 5 sockets. Now it's a bit of a choice and whatever you prefer, but you can for example run a Floss Blink, or you can do Leap Slam plus faster attacks. You can also run Immortal Call plus increased duration, or you can automate it through cost when damage taken. I chose for the Frost Blink a manual cost Immortal Call plus a duration link to it and a cost on that portal. But as my character has now progressed, I am most likely swapping out of the cost on that portal for a Leap Slam plus faster attacks and a cost when damage taken Immortal Call, because I think it'll be enough for me to never die again. Leap Slam is a lot more mobile, which makes it so I can control monsters not off-screening me, and Immortal Call proccing when they do start to attack me from off-screen will probably save me enough of the times so that I can jump into them, kill them before they kill me, meaning I'll be full life again. This makes it so I don't think the cost on that portal will be saving me time. It has saved me time in the past though, because that's a disclosure we need in this video guide. The build is kind of squishy, right? You trade off investment for tankiness. You are going to be a bit reliant on playing well, and you can't just stay in the fray. Well, you can stay in the fray because you have insane recovery, but once something hits you off screen or once something hits you while you're not hitting anything back, it gets a little bit problematic. The last thing we should talk about in this guide, which is also pretty important for you guys to understand, is that you need to abuse Path of Building in this build to make sure you are crit capped, hit capped, so accuracy capped, and attack speed capped at all times. Now, how do you do this? So, when you open Path of Building, you can go to your Cyclone skill, and you need to make sure that when you use your flasks and all, you need to make sure that you are both critical strike chance capped and hit chance capped. If you have both of those, you can alternate your attack speed by, I don't know, you can use a fake flask or something, or make some kind of jewel with a lot of attack speed, and see if you get more trigger rates on your Ice Nova if you have more attack speed. If this is the case, you're short on attack speed. You're aiming to have this trigger rate not change, and you're aiming to have your effective trigger rate be the same as your trigger rate. If you do this, you'll be doing plenty of damage and you'll be enjoying a Cast on Crit Ice Nova guide on what is virtually no budget for the build. That being said, I tried to keep it short as possible. I hope you guys enjoyed. Do make sure to read the written guide if you want. There is multiple ways to help me out. You can start by clicking on the like button, and I hope to see you guys next time.